In the ruthless world of international drug trafficking, one name stood above all: Griselda Blanco. Her rise to power was as swift as it was brutal, and her reputation sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld. Known as La Madrina, the Godmother, her legend was so fearsome that even Pablo Escobar reportedly admitted to fearing her. She was a rare figure, a woman who dominated a world ruled by men, and she did so with an iron fist. Griselda didn't just play the game, she changed it, ruling with unmatched brutality and innovation. Her strategies were as cunning as they were ruthless, and she was always one step ahead of her enemies. She pioneered methods of execution and cartel operations that would define the cocaine trade for decades. Her influence shaped the very structure of organized crime in Miami and beyond. Her empire was built on rage and cruelty, not just calculated violence. She inspired terror in her rivals and loyalty in her followers, creating a legacy that would haunt the city for years. Griselda commanded armies of hitmen and showed no mercy to anyone, men, women, or children, who crossed her. Her orders were carried out without question, and her enemies often vanished without a trace. She transformed the cocaine business into a multi-billion-dollar global enterprise, leaving a trail of devastation. The scale of her operations was unprecedented, and law enforcement struggled to keep up. In the world she shaped, fear was the only true currency. People whispered her name in terror, knowing that crossing her meant certain death. The Godmother's story is a chilling reminder of the cost of absolute power, a legacy written in blood, and a reign that changed the face of crime forever. Griselda Blanco's descent into darkness began in the slums of Cartagena, Colombia, in 1943. Born into a world where hope was scarce and violence was everywhere, her earliest memories were shaped by the harsh realities of survival. The streets were unforgiving, and every day was a struggle to find food, safety, and a sense of belonging. Raised in poverty and abuse, she learned early that violence was the language of survival. Her mother, desperate and hardened by her own circumstances, offered little comfort or protection. Griselda quickly realized that compassion was a luxury she could not afford. By age 11, legend says she committed her first murder during a botched kidnapping. This shocking act was not just a rumor, it became a defining moment, marking her as someone willing to do whatever it took to survive. This act set the tone for her life, power through fear. In a world ruled by intimidation, Griselda learned to wield fear as both a weapon and a shield. As a teenager, she fled her abusive home, surviving as a pickpocket and prostitute on Medellin's streets. The city, notorious for its lawlessness, became her new battleground, where she honed her skills and learned the art of manipulation. The city's brutality became her apprenticeship in crime. Every encounter was a lesson, every betrayal a warning, and every victory a step closer to power. She learned to trust no one, relying only on her own cunning and ruthlessness. Friendships were fleeting, and alliances were always temporary. Every day was a fight, and she decided she would be the predator, not the prey. Her determination hardened, and her reputation began to grow among the city's underworld. Her teenage years forged her into a future queenpin. The lessons she learned in those brutal streets would become the foundation of her criminal empire. Griselda's early life was not just hardship. It was the making of a criminal mastermind, a woman who would one day rule with an iron fist and leave an indelible mark on the world of organized crime. Griselda Blanco's criminal journey began in the gritty streets of 1970s New York, where she and her first husband, Carlos Trujillo, orchestrated elaborate counterfeit operations. Together, they navigated the city's underworld, forging documents and printing fake currency, always staying one step ahead of the law. Their partnership laid the foundation for Griselda's future empire, teaching her the art of deception and survival in a world ruled by crime. But Griselda's ambition was insatiable. Refusing to settle for small-time schemes, she sought greater power and wealth. With her second husband, Alberto Bravo, she boldly entered the cocaine trade, a move that would change the course of her life and the drug world forever. Griselda revolutionized drug smuggling by inventing ingenious hidden compartments in lingerie, allowing her couriers to transport cocaine undetected across borders. Her creativity and ruthlessness set her apart from her rivals. She also used legitimate businesses, bakeries, laundromats, and small shops as fronts to launder money and conceal her growing empire's true nature. These innovations made her operation more efficient and profitable than ever before, allowing her to expand rapidly and amass a fortune few could imagine. But with power came danger. When Griselda suspected Bravo of betrayal, she didn't hesitate. She confronted and killed him herself, seizing total control of their empire and sending a chilling message to anyone who might cross her. This ruthless act earned her the infamous nickname Black Widow, a title whispered in fear throughout the criminal underworld. Griselda's message was unmistakable. No one, not even her own family, was safe from her relentless ambition and hunger for power. She became a living legend in the underworld, feared and respected for her willingness to eliminate anyone who stood in her way, no matter the cost. The Godmother was born, her empire forged in blood, betrayal, and an unbreakable will to dominate. Griselda's rise was as violent as it was unstoppable, leaving a trail of chaos and fear that would define her legacy for decades to come. Fleeing indictment, Griselda set her sights on Miami in the late 1970s, a city ripe for takeover. She unleashed a wave of violence that transformed Miami into the epicenter of the cocaine wars. Griselda's signature motorcycle assassinations, a terrifyingly efficient method that became her calling card. She bypassed traditional routes, importing massive quantities of cocaine and amassing hundreds of millions. Her reign was marked by public shootouts like the infamous Dadeland Mall massacre. Griselda lived lavishly, naming her son Michael Corleone and throwing extravagant parties. She ruled Miami's drug trade through fear, paranoia, and relentless brutality. No one was safe from her wrath. Betrayal, real or imagined, meant death. The city became her battlefield, and she its most feared warrior. Griselda Blanco was the undisputed queen of Miami's cocaine underworld. Griselda's Miami empire was built on terror and paranoia. She trusted no one, ordering executions for the slightest suspicion of disloyalty. Her enforcers, like Jorge Rivi Ayala, carried out her bloody orders without question. Griselda's cruelty was personal. She relished the suffering of her enemies and even innocent bystanders. Her power seemed untouchable, with informants in law enforcement and officials on her payroll. But the violence she unleashed drew national attention and federal scrutiny. Miami became a symbol of chaos, and the pressure to stop her mounted. The bodies piling up made her presence impossible to ignore. Griselda's grip was absolute, but the law was closing in. Her reign was nearing its violent end. As Miami's violence spiraled, the DEA made Griselda Blanco their top target. She evaded capture for years, using aliases and constantly moving. In 1985, agents finally caught her in California. She surrendered quietly, ending an era. Extradited to New York, she was convicted of drug trafficking and sentenced to 15 years. Florida built a murder case against her, relying on testimony from her hitman, Rivi Ayala. But a scandal involving Ayala derailed the case, forcing prosecutors to offer a plea deal. Griselda pleaded guilty to 3 murders, receiving a 20-year sentence. After nearly 2 decades in prison, she was released and deported to Colombia in 2004. The once untouchable Godmother returned to the country where her bloody journey began. Her empire was gone, but her legend endured. Back in Medellín, Griselda tried to live quietly, but her past was never far behind. The city had changed, but her enemies had not forgotten. On September 3, 2012, as she left a butcher shop, a motorcycle assassin shot her twice in the head. She died by the very method she had made infamous decades earlier. Griselda's end was poetic, a violent life closed by a violent death. She broke barriers in the darkest way, rising from poverty to criminal royalty. Was she a product of her environment or a uniquely ruthless soul? Her story forces us to confront the true cost of ambition and power. The legacy of the Cocaine Godmother is a chilling reflection on the enduring cycle of violence.